A crew member filmed the moment Clint Eastwood confronted a racist on his movie set, but what Clint did instead of firing him left Hollywood speechless. It was October 2008 on the set of Gran Torino in Detroit, Michigan. Clint Eastwood was directing one of the most personal films of his career, a story about an aging Korean War veteran confronting his own prejudices. The irony of what was about to happen on that set would become one of Hollywood's most powerful untold stories. The film's stunt coordinator, Marcus Rodriguez, had been in the industry for 15 years. He was known for his technical precision and his ability to choreograph complex action sequences on tight budgets. What people didn't know was that behind his professional exterior, Marcus carried prejudices that were about to explode in the worst possible way. On the morning of October 23rd, the crew was setting up for a crucial scene involving a physical confrontation between Clint's character and a group of gang members. One of the actors playing a gang member was James Carter, a talented 26-year-old black actor who'd been fighting for years to get meaningful roles in Hollywood. James arrived on set early, as he always did, reviewing his choreography and wanting to make a good impression on a legend like Clint Eastwood. He approached Marcus to discuss the stunt sequence, asking questions about the positioning and timing of the fight choreography. What happened next would change everything. Marcus, frustrated by the early morning and the pressure of the day's complex stunts, snapped at James in a way that shocked everyone within earshot. He used a racial slur, telling James to stop asking stupid questions and just do what he was told. The words hung in the air like poison, and the small group of crew members who heard it froze in disbelief. James stood there, stunned. In his years in the industry, he'd faced subtle discrimination, been passed over for roles, and dealt with countless microaggressions. But never had someone been this openly, viciously racist to his face on a professional set. One crew member, a young production assistant named Sarah Chen, had been filming behind-the-scenes footage for the production. Her camera had caught everything. The audio was crystal clear. Marcus's words, James's shocked expression, the uncomfortable silence that followed. Sarah immediately stopped recording, her hands shaking. She knew what she'd just captured could end Marcus's career, but she also knew it needed to be reported. Within 30 minutes, word had reached the producers. By lunch, everyone on set knew what had happened. The standard protocol in Hollywood was clear. Racist behavior meant immediate termination. The union would support it. The studio would demand it. Marcus Rodriguez should have been escorted off the set within the hour. But Clint Eastwood had a different idea. When the producers came to Clint's trailer to inform him of the incident and tell him that Marcus was being fired, Clint's response surprised everyone. He stood up from his chair, looked at the producers with those famous piercing eyes, and said 5 words that nobody expected. "I want to talk to him." The producers tried to explain that this wasn't necessary, that the decision was already made, that keeping Marcus on set could create legal liability for the production. Clint listened patiently, then repeated himself, "I want to talk to him, both of them, together." Nobody argued with Clint Eastwood on his own set. An hour later, Clint sat in his trailer with Marcus Rodriguez on one side and James Carter on the other. The tension in that small space was suffocating. Marcus stared at the floor, his face red with a mixture of shame and anger. James sat rigid, his jaw clenched, wondering why he was being asked to sit in the same room with a man who just used a racial slur against him. Clint didn't start with Marcus. He started with James. "Tell me what happened," Clint said quietly. "In your own words. Everything." James took a deep breath and recounted the morning's events. His voice was steady, but the pain was evident. He described not just what Marcus had said, but how it made him feel, how it reminded him of every time he'd been made to feel less than, every door that had been closed in his face, every time he'd been told he didn't belong. Clint listened without interrupting. When James finished, Clint turned to Marcus. "Is that what happened?" Marcus nodded, still not meeting anyone's eyes. "Look at him," Clint said, his voice sharp. "You said those words to his face. Now you're going to look at his face while you acknowledge what you did." Marcus slowly raised his eyes to meet James's gaze. The shame on his face was genuine, but so was the defensiveness. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," Marcus started. "Stop," Clint interrupted. "Don't explain, don't justify. Just Answer the question. Is that what happened? Yes, Marcus whispered. What Clint said next would become the foundation of one of Hollywood's most remarkable transformations. Marcus, you're going to be fired today. That's what everyone expects, and that's what should happen. But I'm going to give you a choice, and it's the only choice you're going to get from me. Marcus looked up, confused. You can leave this set right now, take your termination, and go back to your life. Nobody will ever know what you said except the people who were there. Or you can stay on this production under conditions that I'm going to set, and you're going to do the hardest work of your life. The trailer was silent except for the sound of the crew working outside. If you stay, Clint continued, you're going to work every day alongside James. You're going to take instructions from him on every stunt he's involved in. You're going to treat him with the respect you should have shown from the beginning. And here's the part that's going to be really hard for you. You're going to attend every cultural sensitivity training session I arrange. You're going to meet with community leaders. You're going to listen to stories from people whose lives have been shaped by the kind of language you used. Clint paused, letting his words sink in. But most importantly, you're going to be honest. Not with me, not with the producers, but with yourself. You're going to figure out why those words came out of your mouth, and you're going to do the work to make sure they never come out again. Marcus sat in stunned silence. This wasn't what he expected. He'd expected to be fired, to become another cautionary tale in Hollywood. But this was somehow harder. Why? Marcus finally asked. Why would you do this? Clint looked at him with an expression that was neither kind nor cruel, just honest. Because this film is about a man confronting his own prejudices. It's about transformation, about becoming better than you were. And I'll be damned if I'm going to make a film about redemption while refusing to give someone a chance at their own redemption. But make no mistake, this isn't about you. This is about whether change is possible, and you're going to prove it one way or another. Then Clint turned to James. And I need to know if you're willing to be part of this, because if you're not, I completely understand. You didn't ask for this, and you don't owe anyone forgiveness or patience. If you want Marcus fired right now, just say the word. James sat silently for a long moment, processing everything. He looked at Marcus, who finally met his eyes with something that looked like genuine remorse. And then he looked back at Clint. I'll do it, James said quietly, but on one condition. He doesn't just listen to other people's stories. He has to tell his own. He has to figure out where this came from, and he has to own it. Clint nodded. Agreed. What happened over the next 6 weeks of production became legendary among the crew, though few people outside the production ever heard about it. Marcus showed up every day at 5 in the morning, an hour before call time. He worked with James on every stunt sequence, taking direction, asking for feedback, and slowly, painfully, learning to see James not as a subordinate or as someone different, but as a colleague and craftsman. Clint arranged for Marcus to meet with Dr. Beverly Tatum, a psychologist and expert on racism and prejudice. Marcus spent hours in sessions unpacking where his attitudes came from. A father who'd used similar language, a childhood in a segregated neighborhood, years of unchallenged assumptions, and the insecurity that came from feeling threatened by people who were different from him. He attended screenings of documentaries about the civil rights movement. He read books James recommended. He visited the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit and spent an entire Saturday there, reading every exhibit, watching every video. But the real transformation happened in the small moments on set. One afternoon, during a break, James was talking about his experience auditioning for roles in Hollywood, describing how he was always asked to play gang members or criminals, rarely getting a chance to audition for complex, nuanced characters. Marcus, who would have dismissed this as complaining 6 weeks earlier, found himself genuinely angry on James's behalf. That's not right, Marcus said quietly. James looked at him, surprised by the emotion in his voice. No, James agreed. It's not. Another day, a new crew member made a casual comment that had racial undertones. It wasn't blatantly offensive, just one of those thoughtless remarks that people make without realizing the harm. Marcus was the one who spoke up, gently but firmly explaining why the comment was problematic. The crew member apologized immediately, and Marcus nodded, recognizing his own journey in that moment. On the final day of shooting, Clint pulled Marcus and James aside one more time. "You both did something remarkable," Clint said. "Marcus, you did the hard work that most people refuse to do. You didn't just apologize, you changed. And James, you gave someone a chance when you didn't have to. You both proved something important." Marcus looked at James, and for the first time, there was no shame or defensiveness in his expression. There was respect, gratitude, and something that looked like friendship. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and this time the words carried real weight. "Not just for what I said, but for who I was when I said it. Thank you for not giving up on me." James nodded. "Thank you for doing the work." The story didn't end there. After Gran Torino wrapped, Marcus became one of Hollywood's most vocal advocates for diversity and inclusion in stunt coordination. He started a mentorship program for stunt performers of color, using his connections and experience to open doors that had been closed for too long. He and James remained friends. When James finally got his breakthrough role 3 years later in a major studio film, Marcus was the stunt coordinator he requested. They worked together on 5 more films over the next decade. In 2015, at a panel discussion on racism in Hollywood, Marcus publicly told his story for the first time. He didn't hide from what he'd done or try to minimize it. He spoke honestly about his prejudices, his transformation, and his gratitude to Clint Eastwood and James Carter for giving him a chance to become a better person. "Clint could have fired me," Marcus told the audience. "He should have fired me. But instead, he gave me the hardest gift I've ever received, the opportunity to change. Not everyone deserves that opportunity, and not everyone would take it. But if you get that chance, you owe it to everyone who's been hurt by the person you used to be to do the work and become someone better." The video of that panel went viral, reaching millions of people. Marcus received thousands of messages, some praising him, some criticizing him, but many from people who were inspired to examine their own prejudices. Clint never publicly commented on the incident. That wasn't his style. But years later, in an interview about Gran Torino, he said something that seemed to reference what had happened without naming names. "The film is about whether people can change," Clint said, "and I believe they can. But change requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to do uncomfortable work. It's not enough to say you're sorry. You have to become someone who wouldn't do that thing in the first place." Today, the story of what happened on the set of Gran Torino is taught in some film schools as a case study in leadership and conflict resolution. Not because Clint's approach was the only right one, or because it would work in every situation, but because it demonstrated that sometimes transformation is possible when we're willing to demand it and support it. The footage that Sarah Chen captured that October morning was never released. She deleted it at James's request, deciding that Marcus's transformation was more important than his public humiliation. But she kept a different piece of footage, a clip from the last day of shooting, showing Marcus and James laughing together while setting up a stunt, working in perfect synchronization. That clip sits in her personal archives, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones about second chances, hard work, and the possibility of becoming better than we were. The lesson from that Detroit film set isn't that racism should be tolerated or that victims owe their abusers patience. The lesson is that leadership sometimes means creating space for the hard work of transformation, holding people accountable while giving them a path forward and believing that change is possible without pretending it's easy. Marcus Rodriguez's story doesn't erase the hurt he caused or excuse what he said, but it proves that when someone is willing to do the real work of change, and when others are brave enough to hold space for that transformation, something remarkable can happen. And sometimes that's exactly what Clint Eastwood meant when he made a film about redemption, that becoming better than we were is possible. But only if we're willing to look honestly at who we are and do the uncomfortable work of change. If this story of transformation and accountability moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of second chances and hard work. Have you ever witnessed someone genuinely change their beliefs and behavior? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more powerful true stories about Hollywood's hidden moments of humanity.